Amanda, a single mother working long hours as a taxi driver, found an elderly man collapsed on the street and rushed him to the hospital. Just an hour later, a shocking turn awaited her. An ambulance was parked outside her house, doctors and paramedics seemingly waiting for her. Little did she know her simple act of kindness would transform her life and her son's future in ways she never imagined. Hi everyone, welcome back to Unveiled Narratives. Today I have another heartfelt story to share with you. Thanks. Have a great night, Amanda said with a warm smile as her passenger handed her a tip. Thank you, the elderly passenger replied softly, his hand trembling slightly as he opened the door. He stepped out and walked a few unsteady steps away, and Amanda watched him for a moment. The door closed with a soft thud, and she let out a small sigh of relief. Another ride completed. She glanced at the crumpled bills in her hand and quickly counted them. A satisfied smile spread across her face as she folded the money carefully and tucked it into her purse. With this tip, her week of saving was finally completed. It wasn't just any savings. It was for Liam, her 10-year-old son. His birthday was tomorrow, and he'd been wishing to celebrate it at the amusement park. Amanda had promised him that this year she'd make it happen. As a single mother, Amanda worked tirelessly to give her son the childhood he deserved. Every ride she took, every tip she saved, was for him. It hadn't been easy. Saving enough for the park tickets, the gift, and a small celebration had taken her a full week. But tomorrow she'd finally see Liam's face light up with joy, and that made every effort worthwhile. Amanda felt a moment of quiet satisfaction as she tucked the tip into her purse, imagining her son's happiness the next day. As Amanda adjusted her seatbelt and prepared to pull away, her eyes shifted to the rearview mirror. Her heart skipped a beat. The elderly man she had just dropped off was no longer walking. He was on the ground, his frail hand raised weakly, as if signaling for help. Without a moment's hesitation, she turned off the engine, opened the door, and rushed to his side. His breathing was shallow, his face pale, and his body looked unnaturally still. Amanda quickly pulled out her phone and dialed 911, the operator informing her that an ambulance would take 10 to 15 minutes to arrive. Glancing at the man's frail form, she knew he didn't have that much time. Luckily, the hospital was only a few minutes away. Realizing there wasn't a second to spare, Amanda decided to take matters into her own hands. Steadying herself, she carefully helped the man into a sitting position. Though weak, he leaned on her for support as she guided him back to the taxi. Once he was settled in the back seat, Amanda rushed to the hospital, her hands gripping the wheel tightly as she prayed she wasn't too late. Amanda pulled up to the hospital's emergency entrance and hurried to help the elderly man out of the car. He leaned heavily on her as they made their way inside. Nurses immediately came forward, helping her guide him into a wheelchair. A doctor joined them, quickly assessing the man's condition. "What happened?" one of the nurses asked. "I found him fainting on the street," Amanda explained breathlessly. "He was walking just fine earlier, but then he collapsed." The nurses nodded, wheeling the man toward the treatment area. Amanda stood frozen for a moment, watching as they disappeared behind the swinging double doors. She let out a shaky breath, her heart still pounding from the rush to get him there in time. In the now quiet reception area, Amanda finally allowed herself to sit down. She leaned back in the hard plastic chair, exhaustion settling into her body. The events of the night had unfolded so fast that she barely had time to process them. A nurse approached her a few minutes later, clipboard in hand. "Hi, are you the one who brought the gentleman in?" "Yes," Amanda replied, straightening up. "Well, his condition is stable," the nurse said with a reassuring smile. "It's nothing life-threatening, likely exhaustion combined with low blood pressure." She glanced briefly at her clipboard. "However, he does need some immediate care, basic tests and medication to help him recover." After a short pause, she added, "Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to have anyone with him to handle the costs. Would you be willing to assist? It's not a large amount, but we need to proceed quickly." Amanda's breath caught in her throat. Her hand instinctively moved to her purse, where the week's savings sat neatly folded. That money was for Liam, for the amusement park tickets, the gift, and the small celebration she'd promised him. She could already picture his face lighting up with joy, his laughter as he explored the rides and attractions. She looked down at her purse, fingers hovering over the clasp. It felt like the weight of the entire world was pressing down on her. But then her mind flashed back to the elderly man's frail body, the way he had raised his trembling hand for help. Amanda closed her eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Yes, I'll help." The nurse smiled kindly. "Thank you. I'll make sure everything is handled quickly." Amanda handed over the money, her heart heavy but resolute. She reminded herself that this was the right thing to do. Someone's health and safety mattered more than a single day of celebration. As the nurse walked away, Amanda leaned back in her chair, staring blankly at the floor. A knot of guilt and sadness twisted in her stomach as she thought about tomorrow. How would she tell Liam that the amusement park was no longer an option? How would she explain that all the money she'd worked so hard to save was gone? She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old pictures of Liam. One photo, taken last year on his birthday, showed him holding a cupcake with a single lit candle, his smile beaming brighter than any party decorations ever could. Amanda's lips curved into a faint smile. Maybe she couldn't give him the big day she'd planned, but she could still make it special in her own way. A while later, the doctor emerged from the treatment area, walking toward Amanda. "The man is stable now," he said. "It was nothing too serious. His blood pressure dropped due to fatigue and dehydration, but he's responding well to treatment. He'll be discharged once he's rested a little more." Amanda felt a wave of relief wash over her. "That's good to hear," she replied softly. The doctor paused, meeting her gaze. "He asked about the person who brought him in," he said. "He wanted me to thank you on his behalf. It seems like you really went out of your way to help him." Amanda offered a small, humble smile, shaking her head. "It was the least I could do," she murmured. She started toward the exit, her body heavy with exhaustion. Her shift was over, and it was well past midnight. All she wanted now was to get home. Liam would be waiting for her, even if he had likely fallen asleep by now. The thought of her son brought a small flicker of warmth to her otherwise tired mind. Just before reaching the exit door, Amanda paused, a sudden thought stopping her in her tracks. Turning back, she reached into her purse and pulled out one of her taxi business cards. Approaching the nurse at the reception desk, she extended the card with a gentle smile. "If he or anyone in his family needs anything, please let me know," Amanda said. "I don't live far, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can." The nurse took the card, her expression softening with gratitude. "That's very kind of you. I'll make sure they get this." After leaving the hospital, Amanda made her way to her sister Lisa's house to pick up Liam. The quiet streets offered a brief moment to reflect, though her mind was heavy with the events of the night. Like many working parents, she often relied on Lisa to watch Liam during her late-night shifts, knowing he would be safe and cared for. As she turned into the driveway and parked, she took a deep breath, trying to shake off her exhaustion before stepping out. Liam ran to her as soon as she arrived, his face glowing with excitement. Amanda couldn't help but smile as she hugged him, though her thoughts were clouded with worry. She could see how much he was looking forward to tomorrow. His cheerful energy filled the car as they drove home, and he talked nonstop about the amusement park, about the rides, the games, and how much fun it would be. Amanda listened quietly, her hands gripping the wheel a little tighter. She didn't want to dampen his happiness, but she knew she had to tell him the truth. The money she had worked so hard to save was gone, used to help the elderly man at the hospital. She couldn't take him to the amusement park as promised, at least not tomorrow. As they neared home, Amanda's thoughts raced. She rehearsed what she would say to Liam, trying to find the right words to explain everything without breaking his heart. She didn't want to see the joy on his face fade, but she knew there was no way around it. Just as their house came into view, Amanda noticed flashing red and blue lights ahead. Her stomach sank as she saw an ambulance parked in front of her door, its lights casting harsh patterns across the dark street. She slowed the car, her pulse quickening. Something was wrong. Liam clutched her hand tightly as they stepped out. his earlier excitement now replaced with quiet confusion. As they approached, Amanda saw doctors and paramedics standing near the ambulance, waiting as if they had expecting her. Then, a well-dressed man standing beside the stretcher stepped forward to meet her. "Miss Amanda?" the man said, his tone warm but serious. "I'm James, this gentleman's son. My father insisted we come here tonight to thank you personally. He told me about your kindness earlier today, how you didn't hesitate to help him in his time of need." Amanda glanced at the elderly man, who gave her a weak smile as he thanking her with his eyes. The doctors and paramedics remained nearby, ready to assist if needed, their presence a precaution to ensure his safety as they transported him back to the hospital. James reached into his coat and held out an envelope. "My father wanted to show his gratitude in a meaningful way. Please accept this. It's a small gesture of thanks for what you've done." Amanda hesitated, her hands trembling as she opened the envelope. Inside was a check with an amount so large it took her breath away. She stared at it, struggling to process what she was holding. I can't take this. I didn't help him expecting anything in return," she said, trying to hand the envelope back. James gently placed the envelope back into her hands. "You didn't expect anything, and that's exactly why you deserve it. This is for you and your son, to make life a little easier." The elderly man met her eyes and gave a gentle nod, his expression warm and encouraging, as if silently urging her to accept. Amanda looked down at the envelope, her fingers brushing its edges as if trying to confirm it was real. A mix of relief and disbelief settled over her. She nodded, her voice soft but steady. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say." James offered a small smile. "You don't have to say anything, just accept it." The elder man smiled back, his gratitude shining through his tired eyes. The doctors moved to help him back into the ambulance, leaving Amanda with a moment of quiet reflection. That night, as the ambulance pulled away and silence settled over the street, Amanda stood still for a moment, the weight of the evening sinking in. The kindness she had given without a second thought had returned to her in a way she never could have imagined. For the first time in a long while, hope replaced the constant worry in her heart. The check in her hands wasn't just money, it was a chance to give Liam the life he deserved. She could see his dreams take shape, free from struggle, and offer him the childhood every child should have, one filled with warmth, joy, and opportunity. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more inspiring tales like this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.